Tsar Nicholas II got Russia into a war with Japan between 1904 and 1905 because he thought it would be a swift and decisive victory in Russia's favor in order to make him look better and to acquire more patriotism and loyalty from the people of Russia. This failed, and he turned out to be extremely stubborn when his actions and words are viewed. He would have continued the war even though he suffered a bad defeat, except for the fact that others convinced him otherwise. This would have most definitely contributed to the start of World War I because of his stubborn tendencies to, well, be stubborn. Additionally, while the Russo-Japanese War was going on, Tsar Nicholas II was extremely unpopular back home, as evidenced from my little tidbit earlier, especially after Bloody Sunday, which occurred in 1904. Other than the attempted rebellion caused by the fact that his men fired on peaceful protesters and killed them, mass strikes lasted into and during World War I because of this. Nicholas II obviously needed to improve his image. However, he believed in absolute autocracy and that he should be ultimate ruler. So he is also extremely stubborn here, and because of the mass strikes, the economic potential of Russia is crippled, or at least temporarily.
Years before World War I, also known as the Great War, there are many economic challenges Russia faced. Russia was facing major economic underdevelopment, for the time being outpaced by many other countries around it, such as Japan and Germany. Russia's longtime economic competition with Germany and many other countries influenced its industrial development and foreign policy. The threat of the surrounding countries' rapid growth prompted Russia to prioritize obtaining resources and further expanding the economy. For example, Tsar Alexander II opened the first bank in 1860 to stabilize the national budget. Tsar Alexander also opened many reforms which led to the freedom of serfs in 1861. A few years later, Russia would enter a depression in 1879, where industrialization slowed, the economy crashed, and a famine would span across the entire country. In the days leading up to World War I, industrialization had skyrocketed once again, especially in its textile, coal, and steel production, which also led to an increase in military capabilities and strength. Although, for Russia to keep expanding at this rate, securing resources from other countries was needed, which was one of the motivating factors towards joining the war. The competition for markets across Europe was still heavily prominent and ever-growing. Russia saw the war as a way to secure its economic influence in the Balkans and the Ottoman Empire, which was seen as regions rich in resources. Participation in World War I was also seen as a strategic move to secure these interests and ensure its ever-growing industrial.
Speaking of Tsar Alexander II, his relationship with the Duma and Zemstvo were detrimental to Russia as well, as they could not decide on what to do. They were on and off throughout his entire rule. This led to political discontent, as no one really knew what was going on with the Tsar or the Duma, and this led to some social discontent, as the people had no idea what was going on in their own nation. This led to opinions sparking and led to some social differences of opinions, and overall helped as a catalyst in leading Russia to the Great War. There were also short-term causes from a political aspect, such as the alliance obligations. Russia was part of the Triple Entente, which was Russia, France, United Kingdom, and some of Africa. This meant that if one of them, say the United Kingdom, went into conflict, Russia was obligated to help them. This means that they were always on edge when they were looking for war with other countries, as they didn't want to bring other countries into their war, and they didn't want to get brought into war from other countries. There was also military discontent, as there were a lack of resources such as food, shelter, and there were terrible working conditions for the military. This led them to be unmotivated to work for Russia and to serve their nation. Last is Russia's self-image. Russia thought their duty was to defend the Slavic countries. This is significant to the cause of the Great War and Russia's involvement, as it shows that they held a responsibility that wasn't really theirs to help the Slavic countries. However, this could bring them into war even when their military wasn't ready. This occurred after the Russo-Japanese War, and it shows that Russia's military was not ready for such a war. Overall, the alliance obligations, military discontent, and Russia's self-image shows that Russia was not in a great spot politically without the Tsarist rule. It also shows that there were many instances of political discontent, showing how this could have pushed Russia to join the Great War. Another aspect that has short-term and long-term causes of starting the Great War for Russia was the military. In the short term, Austria-Hungary, who was allianced with Germany, decided to start a conflict with Serbia, who were in alliance with Russia. This is when Russia mobilized their military, and this mobilization of military provoked the Germans, and Germany decided to declare war on August 1st, 1914. This instance shows how the alliance obligations from the previous slide led to the Great War. Some long-term causes for the military was Tsar Alexander II's well-educated military. While he had many great military reforms, Tsar Alexander III and Tsar Nicholas II did not treat the military correctly, as they were never armed well, and they had many crushing defeats in Russia's past. Some of the long-term social causes are also significant in Russia's joining of the Great War. There was a large class discontent between the poor citizens, the Tsar nobility, and the working class. There was also a lot of urbanization and industrialization in Russia. This led to the spread of opinions and shows how there were many things such as facts, literature, education spread throughout Russia that could have caused other people, such as the peasants, to be educated and to gain their own opinions about the Tsar. This criticism towards the Tsar ended up creating social discontent, like talked about earlier, and divided Russia as a whole, and led to them not having a great social background before entering the war. Some short-term causes from a social standpoint are ethnic nationalism and education. Ethnic nationalism is when the Poles, Ukrainians, and Finns sought for more rights. This was a big social push and took the focus off of the war for Russia. And the education, like talked about earlier, created more opinions circulating Russia during the time.